Hello everyone. SubQuery is Polkadot's leading data indexing solution, built for developers by developers. We're a foundational layer to the leading parachain teams in Polkadot and Kusama. Since our inception, we've been focused on building a flexible and intuitive platform for Substrate developers to query on-chain data to build the leading Web3 decentralized applications. For the non-technical, you can kind of think of us like a Google for blockchain data. We help people find and structure data to build what you see when you're engaging with applications such as wallets, DeFi applications, and NFT marketplaces. After our 9 million Series A in August, the next logical steps for us is obviously to build the SubQuery network, a decentralized and tokenized network. And in order to launch our smart contract in the Polkadot ecosystem, we need to partner with an existing parachain team. Last week, we announced our decision to launch our token via our good friends at Acala, the winners of the first slot in Polkadot's crowd loans and crowd auctions last week. Today, I'm proud to be joined by Bette Chen, the co-founder of Acala. It's good morning, Bette. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, good morning, James. Thanks for having me here.
And congratulations for winning the first auction slot. I imagine you're really busy for the next few days or weeks as you kind of prepare to go live.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to thank everyone who actually participated and contributed to the crowd loan. And there's overwhelming on-chain support with over 81,000 unique contributors on-chain using the non-custodial wallets. So that's pretty amazing to see that support. And that's not counting anyone who went through any of the agencies and exchanges. So there's certainly a lot more for us to build and serve all of these people who participated as new community members. Yeah.
So in case anyone hasn't heard of Acala, which there probably aren't many left, do you want to quickly just introduce Acala to the people listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So Acala is the DeFi hub and also liquidity hub on Polkadot. And the central piece of Acala is our stablecoin. And you can think of it as the stablecoin of Web3 or this decentral bank or reserve of the Web3 future that's completely decentralized and community owned. And can go cross-chain by nature. And hopefully that actually, on top of the Acala hub, it can actually power a lot of the new type of financial applications on top of our platform.
Yeah, so I guess, we decided to launch the SubQuery network on Acala. And some backstory for everyone listening is we've always said that we want to start the SubQuery network on an existing leading parachain. It allows us to get to market quicker. It allows us to scale faster. But the long-term goal, obviously, is to move to our own parachain. Obviously, we're very happy and proud to be going with Acala on this. And there are three kind of main reasons that went into the decision to go with Acala. The first one is, community access. And this kind of also relates to Acala's EVM+. The SubQuery token, we hope to be the first external application and token to launch on Acala. But people may be a bit confused to what it means by launch on Acala. Do you mind kind of explaining what that looks like, Bette?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we've always seeing ourselves as the launching buddy or the launch pad for folks who come to Polkadot or have ambition to actually own their own parachain. Mainly comes from the ability for us to actually customize for individuals' needs, because we can actually build stuff at a lower level and outside the EVM sandbox. So for teams who do have those ambitions, certainly they have a few different approaches to that. They can certainly launch a smart contract, plain and simple, but they can also go beyond just smart contract, but also use some of the substrate more advanced features that we can probably go into a little bit more, James, later, that power their protocols, which can later, I guess, to be moved to a lower level into the substrate level. And then they can own the full stack, and that will be the point where they're probably a little bit more mature then, with a good community support. and then they can actually choose to continue to live on Acala or choose to actually move on to a parachain. And because the way that Polkadot is set up, there is a trustless communication between all the parachains. So moving away from Acala will continue to actually serve both communities, well beyond just launching a smart contract on Acala. So so I think folks taking that approach usually have a longer sort of vision on how they want to develop their protocol and also set up their community. So when we are all here to support the teams there. So.
Yeah, and so while both our projects have our roots in the Polkadot ecosystem, we know that the crypto universe is much bigger than this, right, Bette? And this is kind of why we went to Polkadot, because it is it kind of represents our view that there's a multi-chain future out there. A key consideration for SubQuery when considering our launch was how we could be exposed to other ecosystems, such as Ethereum, both from an investor point of view or a participant point of view, or just general crypto interest. So Acala, you're launching an EVM Plus, the Ethereum Virtual Machine Plus, to help bridge these worlds. Can you please explain a little bit more about what that allows?
Yeah, definitely. We didn't just use the standard EVM that provided by the Parity team out of the box, because the beauty of Substrate is everything is modularized. So you could install EVM app if you like, and then you will have the EVM capability. But by design, the EVM module is somewhat isolated from the rest of the Substrate stack. Which means smart contract will still operate in an isolation sandbox within the EVM, no different from, other layer one that has EVM capability. And then from the Acala team, we are a native Substrate builder. So we kind of like trying to customize a lot of the Substrate modules to actually suit real life business needs. So for example, when you pay for gas fees, you can actually use a stablecoin or any token that's suitable in your sort of business case as transaction fees. That's only one very tiny customization we did. There are a lot more that we can also go into details later. But many of those things we actually managed to incorporate that into the EVM. And also from a more technical perspective, there's many EVM enhancements that, from a Substrate side that's been done. We'll also incorporate that into the EVM as well. At the same time, bring in additional Substrate features. And all in all, the EVM Plus trying to do two things. One is to be able to bring the Substrate flexibility, customizability, more advanced features into the EVM developers' world, so that they no longer operate in a hard sandbox, right? Even though EVM is still a sandbox, but this time around, you can see through the windows. And then if there's a need of that community, the box can be expanded or have custom windows with different colors that actually suit the needs, right? So that's one main goal there. And then the second thing is compatibility. So we are serving the Polkadot community as well as the EVM community, which is like MetaMask and the Ethereum community and beyond, right? So that for us is very important. We don't want to be like one or the other. So the EVM Plus actually done quite a bit of work. So the Polkadot users can actually access all the smart contract protocols and then vice versa, from the other world to come into the Polkadot world. So break down the war in between the two. And hopefully from that point of view, many of the users can, freely travel between multiple worlds or multiple chains, and then be able to enjoy the benefit of this multi-chain future that we see.
And we've noticed that at SubQuery, we recently released a feature that allows you to index the kind of core parity EVM called Frontier, index data from Frontier's EVM and Substrate in the same place. And we're talking to a lot of applications, and it's very binary right now in the world. A lot of them are just either only in the Frontier EVM or on Substrate. There's not many that kind of cross and span that boundary. So I imagine EVM Plus is going to unlock a lot more opportunities around that. Talking about, if I understand correctly, does that effectively mean that for people that want to participate in the SubQuery networks and bring their assets over from other chains, whether it's Ethereum or from Polkadot, will they be able to use EVM Plus to quite easily and seamlessly move their assets between these chains and on the DEXs that you offer on Acala?
Yeah, definitely. So with EVM Plus, then we will have multiple bridges into multiple ecosystems. So not only Ethereum, but also other ecosystems that you can bring assets in and out. And not only your fungible assets, but also non-fungible assets, and also even some more advanced operations that you need to change state rather than just value. Some of those, all cases we can also support. For example, the rate basing type of stablecoin is one of the typical example there. But yeah, so because of the ability there that we can actually do that on top of our platform. Yeah.
There's plenty of opportunity here, Bette, and I imagine you're looking at the landscape and thinking, what bridges can you build and what can you connect? How do you guys prioritize what you work on? What's your view around that?
Yeah, so it's always been a couple of steps for us to actually launch the ecosystem fully. If you look at our launch on Karura and an upcoming launch on Acala, it's never a turn on the switch and everything will come type of scenario, because we actually chose the path not to build just a plain generic blockchain like a platform. We chose the path of building a specialized network or optimized for specific use cases. So that requires us to do a number of things. Number one is to be able to bootstrap and enable all those special utilities like the stable coin, the reserve, as well as the liquidity on a chain. That's the sort of the fundamental stuff that we have to build and bootstrap, so that when others come along, and then they would have some actual concrete valuable liquidity that can last for sustainable long term. So that is certainly the first step that we're taking, is nurturing the local economy within Kusama and Polkadot. And then quite naturally, once that is done and quite solid and proven, then we're going to open up the EVM. And then once the EVM open, then you can go global, right? So then we chose partners that can actually go into multiple consensus networks that allow us to actually bring in and out our local assets, exporting, and then foreign assets, importing into Acala, and also be accessible at multiple levels. So assets that are brought into Acala, certainly through the EVM Plus, you will be in the form of ERC20. But at the same time, you have the option to actually make it a substrate native token if you wish. And then that immediately make you multi-chain capable once you land on Acala. So you can not only be accessing the liquidity at a lower level, but also be able to travel. So the assets can actually travel across to any number of the parachains connected to Polkadot. And as well as once the bridge between Polkadot and Kusama that has been built out, then you can also trustlessly travel between the two universes, right? So they kind of like give you infinite amount of upside without infinite amount of bridge work that you have to do every time you go to a different chain, I guess.
So in a way, you're taking Polkadot's like core vision of being an interoperable network and just scaling that, absolutely taking that to the next level. And becoming the DeFi hub, I guess. So, in summary, that focus on the EVM Plus makes it easier for us to build, but also makes it easier for participants to join in from other networks into this and participate in the SubQuery network and in Acala more generally. The EVM Plus is so much more than just EVM support. So that leads me to my second question, I guess, and we can go a bit into the technical details here now, Bette. The second reason why we went for Acala is really around the domain and the technical excellence, expertise, and experience that the team at Acala have. So how long have you guys been in the Substrate Polkadot ecosystem?
Probably like 3+ years. So before we built Acala as a project, we were already a main contributor to the Substrate code base. And that was a very long time ago, before v0.8 or 7. So it's very, very early when Substrate is still bleeding tech. So there's a very long history there for us to actually build sort of the contributing core modules into the code base, etc. So it's a long time coming for us to get to this point. And then while we are quite sort of very, very deep rooted in the Substrate world, and then I think 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we just chose a specific area that we think it's going to be a turning point, because deep down, every one of us in the Acala team believe decentralization and Web3 is inevitable, which means every single field, every single industry that we have today that's dominated by Web2 is going to turn Web3. The power is going to be given back to the individuals at some point. The only question is timing, and which industry can be that tipping point to actually help all the other industry kind of like turn over. And then at 2.5 years ago, we thought finance would be the part that actually help the cost basically, and then that's why we kind of like chose finance. And then hopefully we are able to kind of inspire and also empower many more developers to build in the field, and then also go beyond just the boundary of what we are doing as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I imagine I like to think that you guys were sitting around a few beers in a pub and decided just to build Acala and get on with it, right? And I understand that your team is probably the largest contributor to the Substrate code base other than Parity itself, right?
Yeah, so I think our CTO Brian and also Sean and also a few other developers, I think they retain the highest sort of PRs into the code base outside of Parity, probably outside of Gav and Rob. So yeah.
Is it a bit of competition for them, do you think?
I think partly is mainly out of a necessity. So
Yeah.
if you are active builders and you're constantly using the stuff that you are actually building, you want to actually keep helping fixing the bugs and then raising missing features and things like that. So it's just naturally become more like one big community.
Yeah, drive forward the progress, right, of Substrate and Polkadot and Acala. So we've been talking a lot about the launch of the SubQuery token, but there's other areas that Acala can help us with, and these are kind of areas related to micropayments, which will be a core fundamental part of SubQuery, but also longer term things like subscriptions. You guys talk about being the DeFi hub and having DeFi primitives. What does that mean, and which ones are kind of going to help SubQuery down the road?
Yeah, so definitely. So on one side, there's the certainly the liquidity and financial side of it, right? So there's the native stablecoin that can power many of the sort of the operations that teams build on top of us, become a payment method there. Instead of just paying in a volatile currency, you could collateralize that and then pay in stablecoin, which will give you the benefit of still holding the token, but at the same time, you could be sure the predictability of a stable currency there. So
That's an
that's
interesting point, right? Like these days, everyone's paying for services in a native token for that service, right? And so you're constantly having to deal with exchanges, with the volatility of the token for more retail investors. The whole idea or concept of being able to pay in a kind of a more stationary stablecoin could be quite fundamentally groundbreaking to how DeFi applications and applications general work in Web3.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's not a zero-sum game. So you're not actually swapping your valuable crypto assets out and then to exchange for stablecoin. You could just collateralize it, right? That's the beauty of having the sort of the reserve or decentral bank as the very low level. So you could use those facility. So we have team, like you could actually do that for US dollars, and then on top of that, you can continue to use the same mechanism and then build out local currencies using that as a collateral, right? So this ability is infinite. Obviously, we're only building the infrastructure there, and then there are already teams thinking and probably building their local currencies based on that. So that's one side of the equation. And then the second side of the equation is more of the technical and optimization side that we did. So those are the things like, you can do very smart on-chain automation that I think we're currently actually missing in any of the standard Ethereum virtual machines, or just like normal sort of virtual machines that you can process automatic payments, subscription services, more in the financial world, keepers that can operate on chain, right? Keepers to the financial safety of your loans or any of the financial positions on chain. So that's part that's like missing in the world. So that's also one very specific area there that we've make some progress there, that are able to provide facilities like you could set up a subscription service on chain that you can, I guess you can actually do Web3 Stripe. Technically, that's now possible on the EVM Plus. And of course, that's a very low-level infrastructure that we provide. And then for the folks who's, want to use those facilities, then certainly you can customize that to your needs, to what it actually looks like, and incorporate that into your application. So
because that could be fundamentally disruptive as well, right? Like in Web2 world, all the services we pay today are subscription based. The last time I paid as you go for something apart from like cloud infrastructure was like buying on iTunes, buying a single song at $1, a song. But now everything is just paid $20 a month or $19.99 a month, and get my Netflix and my iTunes Music and Apple Music, and we're kind of going backwards a bit with Web3. So do you think subscription models are potentially going to be quite a popular one in the future, or do you still think the micropayment side of things is also really relevant to Web3?
Yeah, I think both can actually work together. It just like enriches the payment methods and sort of the availability to suit everyone's needs, right? And then also it kind of creates new business models for protocols to kind of like, I guess that's the more fundamental way to improve UX, right? There's two types of UX I can think of. One is obvious, just to improve the UI, right? Make it look nicer. But then there's some things fundamentally you just can't do, right? If you have to kind of automate certain aspects, they have to be operate off chain right now. So there's external servers you have to run, or someone in the community have to run. Then that actually breaks the UX, because when the network is congested, those transactions wouldn't be able to get sent on chain, and you wouldn't get paid, or you wouldn't get the loans wouldn't get liquidated on time. And those are all UX, right? Because that's more fundamental UX that it's constrained by the underlying blockchain, the ledger, as well as the technology that's available. So I think those are the area that we probably more focus on, is like bring those breakthroughs that we are able to make into sort of the everyday smart contract builders, right? So that they can kind of leverage this functionality available, and then to do more, I guess, innovation. Because I think right now there's a lot of innovations that's been built as more at an economic sort of innovation, but there's a lot of the technical constraints that can also improve upon, that we are also quite focused on. So hopefully it's going to inspire like serious builders. Surely, the first step is, very comfortably launch on Acala and then be able to benefit from all the stuff that I mentioned, like liquidity, ease of payment, and things like that. But then the step number 2 that we are more sort of passionate about is to show them the sort of the white box of EVM now, things that they can push the boundaries, beyond their current constraints, and the new sort of technology available to them. So, yeah.
But also things you can do when you take advantage of a network like Acala and Polkadot, where it's a lot more performant. There's near zero fees, and gas isn't really an issue anymore, right? There's a kind of a shift that will have to happen there to kind of adapt to that. And that's something that we're thinking about quite a lot at SubQuery's. How do we take advantage of the world that we live in, to make sure that the network that we build is as efficient and as effective as possible, but is also as distributed as possible. We can do the smallest microtransactions if we want, and we can pay out every minute or every hour of the day rather than big lump sums to reduce the amount of gas costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you make about subscriptions, right? We've got a pay-as-you-go model in SubQuery, but we've also got a fixed price purchase order that we've put out in a white paper, which is allowing a consumer to say to the world that I want to purchase such data and can index it. Please come in and index that data. It's a variation on a curator role, but it's more concrete and on chain. It's like a contract that goes out for tender or an RFP. So one of the things we're looking around that is how do we do the payment in that process? And subscriptions could be the way to do that, right? It could be a way to, from a consumer point of view, know exactly how much you're buying and at what price, and not wake up in the morning and get bill shock. I don't know if you've had the same issue, Betty, but I've set up stuff in AWS sometimes and then get a bill at the end of the month and go, wow, what? I set that up.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
$400 later.
A lot of transactions today they are sporadic, right? So it just based on what happens at that particular second or block, and then you pay more or less, right? So I think for any like sort of serious business going forward, you have to have that predictability in there.
You want certainty.
And certainty. So subscription certainly brings in certainty for the user side in particular, but also actually fundamentally also the predictability from a business side. You can actually forecast quite easily. If you have folks doing 6 months, 12 months subscription in a certain level, and then there's a lot more interesting model I think you can innovate from what we currently have, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the team at SubQuery, we're really looking forward to push the Acala network to its limits, both in the test network, but also when we go live. So it's going to be fun. Yeah, it's a challenge. And then the third aspect, the third kind of reason why I made this decision was the existing relationship that we have with the team at Acala. A little known fact is some of the original discussions that we had with Acala back in the on-finality days were about building a SubQuery like tool set. So in a way, I've been kind of thank you for some of the ideas that formulated the SubQuery network. But we've been working together for years. One of the first customer projects using SubQuery was for Acala Mandala. You're also using it in Karura. We've done hackathons for each other. And in general, why do you think relationships like these are important in our industry, Betty?
Yeah, I think this is no different from any normal relationship you have with people, right? So this is a little bit like dating, but in an engineering sense that we've been builders in the space for quite a long time now for the both teams, SubQuery team and Acala team. And then at the beginning, you always go through this phase trying to understand each other, what each other's vision, and then we start building together. I think that's the main thing is many of the very long-lasting and very substantial relationship we had is through this code dating process that we had. We build stuff for each other. And then obviously from our side, we provide a lot of technical support. And then the SubQuery side, they constantly come up with, sort of the new prototypes. We certainly, happy to try a lot of those things. The thing is, like, both sides need to kind of pay it forward to make it happen, right? Because when things are at POC, certainly is not as flashed as it is today. But if we did it that way, many of the things just pay for itself in the longer term. That's always our mentality of doing things, is like pay it forward and then build long-lasting relationship, and then a builder supports builder, basically. So I think those are the three things that sums up how the relationship was and has continued to be. Yeah,
I agree that it's definitely about having that shared vision for the future, that mission forwards, and I think Acala and both the Acala and the SubQuery team definitely share a strong vision for Web3 and for Polkadot. And I love your analogy dating. I think one other piece that falls into the analogy of dating is that it's all about communication as well. Being honest with partners, being honest with people that you work with around what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and being transparent and honest. Communication is always the solution for a lot of problems.
For sure.
So I understand that Acala's vision is to become the DeFi hub of Polkadot initially, but more generally the blockchain world, Web3 world in the future. What can people look forward to in the short and long term? I guess, in the like maybe 1 year term, but also like a 10-year term time frame.
Well, 10 years, like multiple lifetime in crypto terms. So I'm not sure if I can I can predict that much longer. But I think what's laid out on our white paper is quite a clear, I guess, ground zero of like the baseline of what we are building. So basically, bootstrap our Web3 stablecoin, which as the cornerstone, because I think we kind of like in the internet of blockchain age, and then you actually need a stable currency that's backed by internet assets, and then be able to flow frictionlessly across internet. So that's one hard task to actually bootstrap. It's easy to build one, but for building a long-lasting and stable sort of reserve takes quite a long time to actually to get there. So that's like sort of the cornerstone for us. And then the step beyond that is basically we are like a sandwich structure. So we have a layer one chain, and then we have the base layer of the primitives, the stable coin, the liquidity built on top. And then the layer above that is the open protocol layer. This is where teams like SubQuery and others can come in. They can leverage a lot of stuff that we built, but they are in an open sort of platform, and they can build their own smart contract. And then the sandwich on top of it is the opportunity for us to work with many of our partners that are able to connect us back to the real world, right? So in the open protocol layer, it's going to be wild, it's going to be way open. And then on the layer on top of that, that hopefully we can actually complete the loop so that many of the services and really cool Web3 infrastructures that we offer can pipe back to the real world folks, like through a fintech or any of the innovators in that space that serve a particular domain users or a user segment that can bring those familiar or very, very the familiar like Web2 experience back to them, even though it's actually powered by Web3 technology. I think the ultimate goal for all of us, regardless the sort of the specific industry that we're in, is really bring the benefits of crypto to users without them knowing they're using crypto, right? Or bring the real benefits of blockchain without them they are actually using blockchain is our goal. And then
that is the ultimate goal. Yeah,
that's
it's like
ultimate goal. Yeah, we are
like my
doing a lot
parents
more in the
using
financial
blockchain
field.
applications.
Yeah, exactly. So but there are a lot to do in any case to get there, but that's where we're heading.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot for that goal as well. It's a very similar goal for us at SubQuery, right? All we do is get data from blockchain and provide in a format that you can use to build more intuitive applications that don't look like they're based on blockchain. That look
Exactly.
like the normal applications that you use on your phone every day in the real world in terms of the old centralized finance way. I do like the point that you make around like the first step starts with that stable coin, right? That is kind of the foundational basis of everything. And it reminds me of like back to my days in economics back at high school many years ago. We talked about the different the definition of money essentially is fungible, it's durable, it's recognizable, which these three are all done by crypto today. But the last two, that is portable and stable, we're not still quite there yet, right? It's still quite difficult to take some token or some asset from one place, move it to another without having to go through a lot of pain and centralized institutions. And of course, all these tokens aren't stable apart from some stable coins that we're not sure what the backing is behind them. So I imagine Acala is working as hard as it possibly can to solve those final two problems.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing is once you have this lower level infrastructure built out, like a reserve bank or a decentral bank of some sort, but this engine that you can generate a stable sort of asset value out of valuable crypto assets, then the layer on top of it is way open, and then a lot of unknown. And the products that the products we know is like you can build commercial banks, right? Those are money markets and exchanges and things like that. But then on top of that, you could also build a lot of other stuff that probably currently people haven't imagined to be built, or people are continuously trying to innovate structured, unstructured products. But all of those things, actually, you have to have like the very base sort of Web3 native reserve to be able to power many of those economies. So we're trying to do the lowest level, the hardest ones. Probably no one wants to spend 3 years building and bootstrapping. And then once we've done that, hopefully will provide enough sort of liquidity and innovative power to kind of enable the ecosystem to continue to innovate on top of that. That builds more product variety and innovation for everybody.
Yeah, the master plan for the DeFi hub of the Web3 generation. So I think last question for me is any advice from you, Bette, in terms of inspiring aspiring entrepreneurs that want to get into the space, that want to start building the next Acala maybe, or the next big DeFi application on Acala? What's your advice to them?
I mean, crypto is a very interesting and intellectually challenging field, right? So I think if you don't want to get bored, if you want to actually, try something out, and this is certainly an area that it's going to challenge you. Every day, every second, there's new things come out. So you can always find ways to contribute. So this is certainly a very open space with very low barrier of entry for people to kind of learn and also be creative. And then the second thing is, like any new innovations, it is wild west. So I think a lot of people going through the space, whether being an entrepreneur, building their own project or working with someone else, they will go through the cycles of soul searching of some sort. Some are related to the cycles of the market goes up and down. When the market goes up, then certainly you think everybody, you are smart, and then every decision you made is correct. But then when things go, sideways, then you start questioning a lot of the assumptions that you have. But this is a very, very interesting, like a mini world that operates 10 times or 100 times faster than the real world out there, that can give you the opportunity to really question yourself, what sort of value that you actually have. Who are you actually building for? Am I here just for the quick hype? Am I here for the alpha and the yield? That's also fine, because there's a lot of interesting stuff happening there as well. Or am I trying to build something else? You can always find anyone in that spectrum that you can collaborate with and work with, because this is a world of diversity. In any of those domains, anyone with different values are all there building. So I think it's a less of advice, but more of like looking backwards. Certainly I think everyone is going to go through this as part of the life experience. It's actually really cool. And looking forward though, I think it is a area undoubtedly is going to change our current status quo, and also change the future. How many times in your lifetime you can actually being part of something like a movement that we are also be part to actually change and build stuff in it. So regardless what you do, whether it's super successful or not so successful, ups and downs, I think just by being in it is a very amazing experience.
Yeah, it still feels very much like we're kind of near the ground floor in terms of where we're going, right? There's a lot ahead of us. So it's definitely not too late for anyone that's looking and jumping in and joining. I like to think of there's this graph or like diagram that a lot of people use, which talks about initial excitement period before it kind of dives to a trail of disillusionment and then takes off again, right? This is like the adoption curve of new technology. And I like to think that 2018 was our initial excitement. Everyone went a bit crazy, and then back now, here we are, and things are really starting to take off. And you can hear that around the ecosystem and around the world generally. A lot of governments are looking at blockchain and saying there's actually something there. It's weathering the storm, and so there's plenty ahead of us, but it's absolutely exciting. And I assume Acala, you guys are hiring a lot, just like SubQuery. We're always trying to find the right people to join our teams, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
hiring actually globally. Yeah, we have teams from 5 or 6 different continents, constantly hiring like good engineers, product people, economists. So yeah, just can go onto our website, jobs, and then see if you want to work with us.
Yeah, and same with us. And that's the best thing about blockchain is that you can work from anywhere. It doesn't really matter where in the world you are, as long as you've got a laptop, a good internet connection, and lots of coffee for your brain, I guess.
For
You can
sure.
work from anywhere. Thank you very much, Betty, for joining us today. It was fantastic to have you join us. We now know firsthand that Acala has an amazing product and community. I guess we already knew that. And we're very much looking forward to deepening our relationship with SubQuery and Acala. So to summarize for everyone, SubQuery is proud to be launching our smart contracts via Acala in preparation for our token launch in March 2022. We're proud to be the first team, or we aim to be the first team to launch an Acala, and we're pushing very fast and very hard to get there. After our launch, we'll be also working with leading decentralized exchanges like the ones on Acala, but also centralized exchanges to list the token to give more opportunities for community participation, and we'll update you all accordingly. But in the meantime, if you have any other questions, you can find Betty on probably Acala's Discord or on Twitter, or you can also talk to me and our team at SubQuery at our Discord or on Twitter as well. So thank you very much, Betty, for joining us today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, James, for having me.